My family has always looked at drug addiction and alcoholism as just a weakness, as a defective character and not for the disease that it really is. And my family has a long history of alcohol abuse, especially from my mother's side. And, you know, I always said, you know, I'll never be that alcoholic. How I got started was I used to be offered taste of drinks at my parents' cocktail parties. Started smoking marijuana in Raleigh, North Carolina as a preteen, and they used to drink all night long down along the creek. We'd find beer cans and unopened beer, warm of course. And that was some of my first experiences with like a full beer. You know, my first full beers was right down there on the creek. You know, it was just a little bit at a time. You know, it was basically recreational for me in the beginning. You know, it was something I did to unwind. As an adult, you know, it started consuming my life, you know, to where I was drinking, getting high during work all day long, before work, during work, after work. You can determine how far a person is along in the cycle of drug and alcohol abuse by certain indicators, you know, one of which is whether they're still able to maintain employment, whether they can keep a roof over their head, you know, and I always had to have a job because I had to pay to have a place to drink and to get high and to keep a roof over my head, and, you know, and that just made sense that, you know, that the drugs and the alcohol, I could only have them if I had a job. And, you know, that would change later in my life. Later in my life, it turned to a lot of crime. And, you know, I was not in one locale all the time. And I wasn't making an honest living. And, you know, and I had moved from smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol to smoking crack all day long. You know, and I'd have anywhere from $300 to $600 a day habit. You know, more than just recreationally. My drug use turned to everyday maintenance use. And I went on using heavier and heavier and heavier for about 7 years. It's like flying an airplane. You know, they say a crash is when you run at altitude, airspeed, and ideas all at one time. And that's when I crash landed at the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, and I'd been to AA before, and, you know, they told me, you know, if you'll take the suggestions, you know, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth so you can listen twice as much. And when somebody, you know, finally sat me down and said, you know, actually it was my mother, she said, you know, you're a junkie. That's what she said. You're a freaking junkie, you know? And that was, I think that was the thing that hurt me the most, is hear that coming from my own mother. You know, I'd been I felt like it was a disappointment and a failure forever, you know? And just, that's the one thing that sticks in my mind, was my own mother coming to say just how utterly disappointed and disgraced with me she was.
There was a moment of clarity. You know, I woke up one day and decided that it was just going to be more work than it was worth to keep drinking and trying to stay high all the time, to stay spun out all the time.
But, you know, life for me today, I'm happy to be in one spot. I'm happy to be, I live in Oklahoma today. I love it. I couldn't be happier. I met Deborah here. And that's the greatest thing that's ever happened in my life, honestly. I met Deborah at a meeting in Tulsa, at a noon meeting over in Tulsa. And Deborah was a very angry woman that was recently separated from her husband, and she's a wonderful mother of 3. And you know, her world just crashed down. She lost everything that she had.
And when Jeff talks about me being angry, that was just a reaction from being scared. I didn't want anybody close to me. I didn't want anybody near me. I was hurt enough. I didn't want to let anybody in. And I thought that would work, but it didn't work with him. It just made him try harder.
For a person as nice as Deborah, when Deborah's sober, and when Deborah's when Deborah's thinking sober and living sober, not just the not drinking part. When Deborah is the beautiful person she can be, there's nobody that has ever touched me in the way that she does.
Living with someone and being married to someone that's in the program with you makes life so much easier, because for one, there is an understanding of your addiction and your disease, and the program is just a part of our life. I mean, we live the same lifestyle, we have the same values, we are both going for the same goal. And if you meet anybody that has any time in the program and they relapse, they'll tell you the first thing they say is they quit going to meetings. And when I first came in, there would be people at meetings saying they had 5 or 10 years, and I thought, my God, and they're still coming to meetings? And that's how you have to do it. It just becomes a part of your life. And it's not bad. It's the only thing that you'll get yourself into that you'll never finish. And I guess when you graduate is if you die sober, And I sure don't want to die drunk.
I think everybody needs a business or something to anchor them to sobriety, some kind of commitment, other than just going to work for somebody else and going home, And people like me, I can't, I quit too many jobs, and so having my own thing going, that works out better for me, I have a long-term commitment.
My life is not about a constant climb to get a newer car and get a nicer car, to keep getting a bigger house, or it's my life today is not about materialistic issues, just to be happy and content.
Every married couple that stays together and through their old age, until the end, ultimately one spouse has to bury the other. But to be a widower at 45, it's just who I would have never expected it, And like I say, I have no understanding of how this world works. I'm absolutely clueless.